Going over this top 5 favorite shows series I'm doing, it has been really hard because there's a lot of good shows out there and a lot of shows I really like. Last week, for my 4th video, I talked about Arrow being one of my top 5 shows, and then I see this in the comments from Cody Leach and Sean Chandler. Arrow? Top 5 of all time? I have some shows you need to watch, Durbin. LOL. Sean Chandler. I was thinking the same thing. I really like seasons 1 and 2, but top 5? There's a lot of great shows out there. I get it, you guys, I get it. There's a lot of great shows out there. But there's one revelation this series has really shown me is how much of my life I waste in television. So let's go waste some more. Welcome to Durbania. I'm Durbin, and this is my continued series and my top 5 favorite shows of all time. And I figured before I get into, my number 5 video here, which I'm sure you can already tell, is a tie between 2 shows, I thought I would at least go back and hit some honorable mentions. Honorable mention number 1, Stranger Things. That show was only 1 season, and that season was so good and so extraordinary, it is enough to cement it in one of my favorite shows of all time. I probably should have done Stranger Things last week instead of Arrow. I don't know. I don't know. Maybe I'll live in regret for all time because of that decision. I don't know. My next favorite show that is going into honorable mentions is The Flash, which would have taken the place of Arrow last week, except that I am doing these Flash reviews and I didn't really want to overdo it on Flash content. Otherwise, The Flash for 3 seasons has really held my attention. It is a fantastic show, which I guess technically beats Arrow, which has only held my attention like that for 2 seasons, so maybe should have been The Flash last week as my number 4 video. Oh, man. My next favorite show of all time here in honorable mentions is A Series of Unfortunate Events. Honorable mentions only because it's 1 season, but love the book series so much, and I really thought this first season of the show just captured the spirit of the books, and it was just so fun, and it was so great. I'm excited to see where they're going to take it in the future. Maybe that should have taken the place of my number 4 video last week. Dang it!
Always money in the banana stand.
Arrested Development. That is also one of my favorite shows. I love that show. It's a show I can keep going back to, except for Netflix's season 4. Not a fan of that revival season. It just didn't capture the spirit of the show to me. It didn't really capture what made that show fantastic, but those first 3 original seasons of Arrested Development were amazing. And another one of my honorable mentions, Community. I just loved that show, and it's horrible when you look at what these shows go through. Like, this show had a couple great seasons. Chevy Chase didn't really like it, so he quit, and then it got canceled, and then it got brought back, then it came up on streaming only on Yahoo, and then it got canceled from there. It's just that poor show. It deserved more than what it got, and it deserved a better ending than it had, but I still really like Community. So, onward and upward here. I could probably keep going with honorable mentions and find all kinds of other honorable mentions, but I'm just going to go now into my number 5 video, which is a tie for some of my favorite shows of all time, The Office and Parks and Rec. Now, I went ahead and made these a tie because in a lot of ways, they're the same thing. I think originally Parks and Rec was going to be a spin-off The Office, and then they just made it its own thing, so it's not a spin-off The Office, but it follows the same pattern of The Office. I mean, they kind of just follow each other. They are documentary, mockumentary style type thing, they do the stuff, they have a little interviews with the camera, and they say what they're really thinking. So they do that whole style with the shows, and I really do like that. Well, especially with those shows, because I feel like those shows really pulled it off. And when it comes to The Office, the characters in that show are amazing. Like, when you have Dwight and Jim, just their chemistry together as actors, and all the constant pranks that Jim is pulling on Dwight, and the way episodes would just open with those pranks.
Bears beats Battlestar Galactica.
Bears do not... What is going on? What are you doing?
If I can skin a mule deer in less than 10 minutes, I ought to be able to cut my way.
It's just classic. Seriously, classic. And then you have Michael Scott and all of his Michael Scott-isms.
I'm not superstitious, but I am a little stitious.
Do you think that smoking drugs is cool? Do you think that doing alcohol is cool?
That's what she said.
Steve Carell as that character was freaking amazing. I mean, Michael Scott was one of the best characters on that show. When Steve Carell left that show, that whole show lost an entire dynamic. It lost something special. It lost a huge part of its formula that made it great. However, the other characters were still so good together. You know, you still really like Dwight and Jim and Pam and Aaron, and I don't know, you could just keep going on. I mean, the characters are still good enough that even when the show lost that entire amazing dynamic of Steve Carell, Michael Scott, it still had enough good moments that I watched it till the end. Of course, the last episode was really good. But yeah, so The Office is one of my favorite shows, and the next one is Parks and Rec. I love Parks and Rec. Parks and Rec was great because, number one, the characters. You have Chris Pratt on that show before he become, you know, big famous superhero Star-Lord. And the way that you had Andy Dwyer, his lovable character, the way he and April were together, like, that was just a great match for that show. And I think that was all an accident. Like, I think Chris Pratt was only supposed to be in the first season of that show, which was only like 6 episodes or something. It was really short, but he was only intended to be Anne's like buffoon boyfriend in the first season of that show and no more. But he was just so likable on set and so likable of a character that they wrote him back in and he became that main character. They paired him up with April, which was just an amazing pairing on the show to have April, who's such a weird character, with Andy Dwyer, who is just such a dumb, lovable buffoon. I shouldn't say dumb, but he is a lovable buffoon. And when you put those two together, their chemistry was just so awesome. Like, that was a really great fictional television couple. I really enjoyed that. And then they bring in Ben Wyatt for Leslie Knope. Like, that was a great match. The way that they matched those two actors together, the way those two actors worked with each other, the way those two characters complemented each other. And I just felt like they did a lot with that. Like, Tom and Donna, like, they were a great little dynamic duo.
Treat yourself.
Treat yourself 2017.
They just had a lot of fun with that show, and I feel like every time I watch Parks and Rec, I can feel the fun they're having. On top of all those characters, I tell you, when I grow up, I want to be Ron Swanson.
Just give me all the bacon and eggs you have. I worry what you just heard was, give me a lot of bacon and eggs. What I said was, give me all the bacon and eggs you have.
He's just my hero, to be honest with you. The other thing that makes those shows just my top 5 shows and puts them in my top 5 and ties them for this place here in video number 5 is the fact that both these shows are shows that are on Netflix that I could just turn on anytime and just let them run. I could be doing something else, working on something else, but put those shows on in the background and be laughing with all those great moments. Or if there's just nothing on TV and I really don't want to think and I just want to sit there and vegetate, then I could just pop on those shows. Like, those shows are just those shows that I don't have to think too much about, I don't have to get too in-depth in, and yet I'm in it just enough that I love each and every single one of the characters. Every time one of those episodes is on, like, I'm remembering something great about that episode that drew me in the first time I watched it. So Parks and Rec and The Office definitely fall in my top 5 favorite shows of all time, and they definitely are a tie with each other because they really are essentially kind of the same format, the same kind of thing, but I like them both because they're both very unique, even if they follow the same kind of pattern and formula, and I just really enjoy both those shows. If you had to tell me what some of your top 5 favorite shows of all time were, make sure to let me know in the comments. Is it as hard for you to come up with some of your top 5 favorite shows as it has been for me, struggling through this, trying to come up with my top 5 favorite shows, then coming to the realization of how much television I actually watch? It's kind of sad, really. Gosh. What did you think? What are your top 5 shows? Let me know in the comments. While you're there, hit the subscribe button to become a Durbanian. Next to that subscribe button, there is that bell. Make sure you click that bell. That way you're notified the moment I drop new videos. And hey, a great way to support Durbania if you like this channel, you can buy The Office on Blu-ray, DVD, the Parks and Rec on DVD, Blu-ray, all that stuff. And I have some Amazon links in my description with that Amazon Associates program. So if you wanted some of the seasons and you get them through those links, a portion of that comes back to support Durbania. And I personally would be very grateful if you were going to get those box sets anyway, and that's the way you wanted to give it a shot. I would love that. So you can check that out. Links in the description. I'm Durbin. Thank you for checking out Durbania.